Pensioners living in big family houses are to be given incentives to downsize. It's part of the government's new housing strategy being unveiled this week. In a big shake-up of housing policy, the Prime Minister says she'll put generation rent at the heart of her plans and increase the number of affordable rental homes. Well, with me now is Natalie Elphicke from the Housing and Finance Institute, who fed into the government's proposals. Just this one on downsizing, is that really going to make much difference in the end?
Well, Adam, we do hear that some pensioners do find that they are capital rich but penny poor. So having to find those stamp duty costs up front does stop them moving to another home. So I think for those pensioners, this could be a welcome help. But that's by no means going to solve the housing challenges or build those family homes that young people in particular want to have.
I mean, there's also a problem for elderly people who want to downsize, which is that bridging loans don't exist anymore. So it's very difficult for them to get the new property for them to move into.
I think there are a range of measures that we can expect to see to help older people move their homes. But the key really is unlocking that housing supply and to the generation rent to help that generation rent to become generation buy. People still want to buy their own home like their parents and indeed their grandparents.
I thought the government was changing its attitude towards that and is now going to focus on the rental area and not so much talk about the home owning democracy.
It doesn't look, from the comments over the weekend, as if the government has abandoned the home-owning democracy. And this is such an important issue for particularly the younger generation. Many people do get very angry that they can't have the same affordable housing options of ownership for their parents and grandparents. And so it is going to continue to be an important part of the political landscape.
But isn't, one of the problems actually created by the whole idea of encouraging home ownership by selling off council houses, by selling off housing association properties, that is actually taking cheap rental property off the market?
I don't think that's right. I think what we're seeing is because we're seeing that there has been a huge increase in property ownership in other generations. But
there's been a decrease in social housing being built both by housing associations and by councils.
Well, if we look at 2015-16, the amount of property that actually is coming forward has been very strong. So again, I think when we look over the last 20 or so years, there have been some really good years for affordable housing delivery, but we need to do more across all types of housing. And it would be really welcome when the Housing White Paper comes forward, if it is bringing forward real commitments to those million new homes. The most important thing for all types of homeowners and all types of renters is to get the high quality additional housing that our country has needed.
I mean, the problem is that for decades, successive governments of different colours have set out these bold house building targets and it never happens. They never hit their targets. So how is that going to be changed?
Well, just a few days ago, the National Audit Office issued a paper which did confirm that the government had exceeded its own housing net supply target of 174,000 homes to 190,000 homes in the last year, and that it was on track to build those million homes. I think when the white paper comes out, we're looking for a confirmation that the million homes is still this government's target, and for an understanding of what the balance of those million homes will be. Will it be more rented housing, which is certainly what we've heard over the last 24 hours, or will there also be options, different ways, perhaps rent and buy, perhaps shared ownership, different routes to ownership for those who also want to get on the housing ladder? And
in terms of building, are we building the right sort of houses at the moment, or homes indeed, because a lot of them are apartments, aren't they?
Well, there is a lot of building, and that has just accelerated over recent years. So, when we look at the position as our country came out of the credit crunch, I mean, housing absolutely, it just collapsed. I mean, less than 90,000 homes built after the credit crunch. That's now up to 140,000, around that number of new building.
Well, it's 170.
It's 190 on net housing supply, which is a very, very big achievements. That's conversions, that's all the types of things that bring forward for housing. So two things, and they're quite different things, and they're important in looking at the challenge that the government has set down of the million homes. There's house building and there's total housing supply. So all those conversions, changes of use, better use of property to make sure we're not just building, but we're using property as well as we can to meet housing needs.
And as far as first-time buyers are concerned, this government, the Theresa May government, is changing its approach from the David Cameron, George Osborne one, is that right?
Well, I think we've got to see what the detail is in the Housing White Paper. I mean, certainly the Housing and Planning Minister has indicated a return to the affordable rent and affordable home buying approach, which has been the long tradition in this country. So I think that was, and he said, I think he called it a change of tone, and I think we've seen that change of tone. He was also very clear that he was addressing a very specific challenge for renters at the moment, and I think it's one we all recognise. If you're a renter at the moment, it doesn't feel that you get particularly a fair deal. And I think what the government's done and what we're expecting them to do in the White Paper is to say for renters, they are housing consumers, and we need to make sure that they get a fair deal for being housing consumers as renters.
Natalie Elphicke, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.